to see everybody come back and to see everybody doing so well and to see everybody so happy. You know, it's hard. It's hard in life. You get old, you get broken down, the body doesn't work anymore. But then you come together and you have this moment where the fans just lift you up and say, yeah, let's go one more time. If I could only play one more game. If I could only have one more time out there. And I'd love to do it right here on this court with Bill Schonely over there calling the play. Lickety Brindle up through the sideline. Rip City, let's go.
Hey Rip City, this is Matisse Stivel, and it's time to open the briefcase with Casey Holdahl.
Greetings, Blazer fans, and welcome to The Briefcase, episode 97 of The Briefcase. I am your host, Casey Holdahl, and that was Bill Walton, the legendary Bill Walton, during an appearance back at Moda Center back in 2019 to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the founding of the Portland Trail Blazers. Bill Walton, as you surely know by now, passed away on Monday at the age of 71 after a prolonged battle with cancer. And I'm tired of doing these. I'm sick of losing all of our legends here in Portland. We lost Bill Schonely this year. We lost Jerome, lost Cliff, lost Duck. Now we've lost Bill Walton, one of the best to ever do it. A quintessential Portland Trailblazer, a one of one, a singular personality, singular player through and through. Someone who loomed large in the organization, loomed large in the NBA, in basketball, and in the world, gone far too soon at age 71. We'll talk a little bit about Bill Walton's legacy, his time in Portland, some of my remembrances of working with Bill. Also, Trailblazers hosted a second pre-draft workout on Tuesday at the facility in Tualatin. We'll hear from two of the players at that workout and check in real fast on a conference finals that are just about ready to wrap up or that are basically already wrapped up on this edition of The Briefcase. Obviously, it's incredibly sad to hear about the passing of Bill Walton. I was not aware that he was ill. I know he had been, I believe he was in Portland sometime this season, met with some other alumni at the practice facility. And at that point in time, as far as I could tell, there was no issue. But, he might have been keeping that to himself, and that wouldn't be surprising if he had. But as sad as it is, and it's incredibly sad, to hear all of people's remembrances about Bill Walton, and just to see from his time at UCLA, or even his time at Helix in San Diego, to UCLA, to Portland, San Diego, Boston, his post-playing career as a broadcaster, just the amount of great Bill Walton moments that he gave the world. It'd be much better if Bill Walton was still with us, but the fact that he left just this oeuvre of just insanely interesting and funny and deep and silly and profound notions and content and ideas, and just his willingness to just go out there and talk, as you heard in the open there. He's up there at center court with Bill Schonely. I don't even recall what Bill asked him. Schonely, I guess I should say. They're both Bills. Don't even recall what Bill Schonely asked him in that segment, but Bill just does what Bill does, which is that, he goes out and starts talking. So, incredibly sad to hear about Bill, but it's so great to see how important Bill Walton was to so many people. Again, from San Diego, where he was from and where he made his home, to here in Portland, where, obviously, he helps the team, leads the team to an NBA championship, though he would tell you that was Maurice Lucas that led the team to the NBA championship. And then, things go sideways with his injuries and, his relationship with the team. Ends up going to San Diego, playing in Boston, winning another championship in Boston, winning Sixth Man of the Year in Boston, and then transitions to a career after that in broadcasting where, he calls NBA games with Snapper Jones for a long time, and that was a fantastic partnership. Two guys, obviously, who carry a lot of weight in Portland. And then, Bill's body really kind of gave up on him there for a while, and, he told me a story years and years ago about, when he was Pat Kilkenny, from San Diego, former Oregon athletic director, huge in the insurance industry, wealthy man, friend of Bill Walton's. Bill, he gets his jet and flies Bill who's just in not very good shape. His back, his ankles, just bothering the heck out of him. And this was a point in time where he talked about, how he had not only just contemplated suicide, but contemplated the notion that he was stuck in his body. and couldn't do anything about it, even if he had wanted to. And so he flies to Portland to meet with Maurice Lucas, who at this time knew that he was close as well. And so for a while there, he was out of the game, and and I kind of noticed this when I was seeing kind of some of the clips that, when he was doing commentary in the NBA, and I know that he didn't feel good and his body was bothering him, like it almost had a sharpness to it that I almost kind of didn't recognize from time to time, knowing Bill kind of after the fact there. And then, he has the surgery and he talks about how it saved his life, and, he had basically his spine fused, and it really gave him a second life. And that's when he got into broadcasting Pac-12 games with Dave Pasch on ESPN. And those, I think, are really the the segments that people remember about Bill Walton. Just to the off-the-wall commentary, again, taking things to whatever direction he wanted to go, talking about whatever topics he wanted to talk about, and really just bringing in enthusiasm to not just the game, but to life. And, I know a lot of people, at least initially, I think were maybe put off a little bit by Bill, and, kind of some of the more serious basketball watchers out there probably got a little annoyed from time to time when Bill was talking about, bears being reintroduced to the San Bernardino County, or, glockenspiels and so on and so forth. But I think more and more, people really enjoyed that kind of commentary and that kind of discussion in games. And, I was talking about it just today. It's like, when you're watching a basketball game, like I can see what's going on the court. Like I'm watching it. Like I see it. I don't need someone to necessarily explain what's happening all the time when I'm watching television and radio. That makes perfect sense. In TV, you can kind of let things go sometimes. And I think Bill kind of realized, like, hey, we don't always have to talk about the game. It's right here. Let's get into some of the things that I'm interested in. And, those interests are vast. And I think that's kind of one of the things that I think the most about Bill Walton is that, Bill was just a citizen of the world and consumed everything. And, obviously, he's super into riding his bike, and there's so much footage and so much discussion about Bill Walton and riding his bike, both as a player and afterwards. And, we had that great event here in Portland back when Bill was here, when I believe that audio with Bill was taken, where they went on a bike ride with the entire city. And, obviously that's something he's had a lot of interest in. And, he's obviously a student of the game in the most truest sense of the word in basketball. I mean, Bill Walton studied the game, and, under John Wooden, I think he really, that relationship was so incredibly important to him. And, to be able to play for John Wooden and to have a relationship with John Wooden, you really had to know basketball. And Bill really did, obviously. And, just a savant, and one of the reasons why he's considered one of the greatest passing big men in the history of the game, and probably would be considered the greatest passing big man ever, were it not for Nikola Jokic and maybe Arvydas Sabonis. And I think you could still probably make the case for Bill there anyways. The way he played, and the way that he viewed the world was so giving, and he wanted to be a part of your experience as well. And, so in his playing days, he obviously meant so much to people. And then, in his broadcasting days, obviously meant so much to people. Obviously a huge in the Grateful Dead community, huge in San Diego, huge when it came to supporting his family. He obviously having, Luke going on and playing and coaching, and, his other sons as well. Like, just so much pride there that he had for his family and his kids. And, you could really see kind of the way Bill was as a player in the way that he parented as well, because it was never like, I'm Bill Walton. It's like, I'm Luke Walton's dad. And that was the way he was as a player too. It wasn't like, I'm Bill Walton, the MVP. I'm Bill Walton, who plays with Maurice Lucas, and obviously his son Luke, named after Maurice Lucas. And just so much, just a guy who, again, just a singular personality. Like there has never been another Bill Walton, but Bill Walton, and will not be another Bill Walton. A guy who not only just lived life to the fullest, but like lived life to the broadest too, like just so much interest in the world and in what you're doing. And that was one of the things, I got to know Bill a little bit throughout the years, just in interviewing him. And, he's one of the few guys, maybe the only guy who, when you interview Bill Walton, like, you're going to have to answer questions. Like he's going to ask you about some things. And it's not necessarily going to be about what you're talking about. He's going to ask you about how old are you and what's your family like? And do you have any brothers and sisters and cousins? And, there was a real interest in having a dialogue with the world. And I think that's maybe how I would state it, is that, whether it was on the court, whether it was in a broadcast, whether it was talking to people in person, whether it was at a dead show, riding his bike, Bill wanted to have a conversation. He didn't want to talk to you. He wanted to have a conversation with you, and he wanted to understand the world, and actually not even maybe understand it, but just have a relationship with the world that went beyond, I'm a basketball player, or I'm a television commentator, or I'm a counterculture guy who's really into the dead, or, I'm really into reading about different areas and in space and nature and, just all the things that the Bill had a sincere interest in. He wanted those things to be, he wanted them to live outside of just your mind, he wanted those things to really be a part of your life and part of your experience in the world. And, so that's why, someone asked me the other day, they're like, why isn't anyone talking about, kind of Bill Walton as a player? And it's like, I get that, and you absolutely can. Bill Walton, again, were it not for, Bill Walton, one of the greatest to ever do it, period. Were it not for injuries, might be right up there in the top 5 of all time guys. Bill, who he was, the reason you don't talk about Bill singularly as a basketball player, I think, is because he was everything that Bill did was like Bill Walton doing it. The entirety of Bill Walton, there's not Bill Walton, the basketball player, Bill Walton, the broadcaster. It's just Bill Walton. And so when you're talking about Bill, the things that he did off the court, the way that he interacted with the world was the way that he interacted in basketball. So it's not even like you're not talking about his playing days. You're just not talking about like the stats and the accolades. The things that were important to Bill Walton, the things that made him tick, that he was interested in and that he wanted to engage with off the court were the same things that drove him on the court. And I think that really makes him a different kind of person, a different kind of player. And again, one that I don't think we've seen many times, and I don't know that we'll ever see again. So, there's going to be more remembrances of Bill Walton. There's been so many great ones already. I'm going to talk more about Bill Walton throughout the coming weeks there, I think, as well, just because I think there's so much to get to and so many interesting things to remember about Bill. But for the time being, I just wanted to kind of just state some of the things I really appreciated about the man. And just the fact, too, that and I've said this from time to time about other players, too, and it's not common, but it is out there that, there's plenty of guys in professional sports who want to make sure that, that they're the athlete and you're not. And they work hard and they reach a certain level of success. And so in some respects, you can appreciate the fact that hey, they want to make sure that that, we're maybe not on the same level. I've done things that you could not do. And fair enough. Bill Walton was not like that. Bill was never like, I'm the player, you're the journalist, I'm the famous guy, you're the fan. He legitimately viewed people as people in that moment every single time. And so in talking to Bill, you always felt like you were talking to someone that you knew, and that someone that was interested in you and wasn't just giving you time because you asked for it, wasn't annoyed that they had to carve out some time for you. Someone that really appreciated the human experience and wanted to be a part of as many human experiences as possible. And this is a dumb thing, and this is why I want to get to it another time too, because all the dumb things I want to say about Bill Walton, I don't want them to cancel out all of the non-dumb things I want to say about Bill Walton. But even so, the team posted a video of Bill Walton today, and they did a great job with it. And a lot of the footage is from when Bill was back in Portland, I think, for the 50th anniversary. And, the clip starts with them saying all right, Bill's like, okay, how long do you want this to go for? And they're like, well, 5-10 minutes. He's like, what? Most of the time when you're talking to people, professional athletes, and you're asking for their time, it's like you are having to do everything as fast as you possibly can. And then if you go long, you got to apologize, be like, hey, we're really sorry. We didn't mean for it to go this long, to get the job done. And usually, guys don't mind, but like, it's always like, it feels like there's a little bit of annoyance there. Bill was always like, no, let's keep going. Like anytime I ever talked with Bill Walton, like I was the one that had to stop the conversation, which by the way, is not an easy thing to do. Like you don't want to stop talking to Bill, but you got to go to a meeting, you got to get your story started. He was a guy who just, again, he was so giving with his time and his thoughts that, every single interaction you had with him, you really felt like it was going to stick with you because of that. Because it really felt like he wasn't just carving out a little bit of time so you could get the thing that you need to get. He really wanted to have a interaction with you. And that's, again, I think that's rare for people in general. It's incredibly rare for athletes, particularly guys who reached the level that Bill Walton reached. And so for him to be as gracious and kind and thoughtful and weird and giving as he was, again, like it's just one of the many things that makes Bill Walton a absolute American original in the literal sense of the word. A great man. Well, we soldier on just as a guy like Bill Walton would want you to. Anyways, Portland Trail Blazers holding their second pre-draft workout on Tuesday afternoon at their facility in Tualatin. And, speaking of Bill Walton and big men, a couple of good big men coming through Portland in that workout. Tyler Smith of G League Ignite and Kel'el Ware of Indiana, two of the 6 players involved in that workout. Let's just go ahead and tell you everyone who was at the workout. Isaiah Crawford of the Louisiana Tech was there. He is the 81st ranked player in ESPN's prospect player ranking. Alex Karaban, UConn forward, as you might recall, guy won a couple national championships back-to-back. He is ranked 36th. He was at the workout today. Caleb Love out of Arizona, unranked. Also at the workout, Quinten Post, another big man out of Boston College, a 71st ranked player in this draft. And then, as I mentioned, Tyler Smith, G League Ignite, 27th. Kel'el Ware, 25th ranked according to ESPN, though those rankings at this point too, once workouts really start, that's when things are going to start to move around a bit. And we've had about a week of workouts. I know this is the second workout for Portland. Not sure exactly what the workout schedule is in the other teams that are holding workouts right now. But in the next couple weeks, we're going to start to see some of what's happening in these workouts kind of filter their way into some of these mock drafts, I would assume. And so you had a couple guys who are expected to be taken somewhere at the end of the first round, at least right now. And I think it's pretty likely that those guys end up maybe even further in the first round as they go through these workouts. So, the two guys we got to talk to today, Tyler Smith, 6'10", 19-year-old forward out of the G League Ignite. Played in 16 games for the Ignite this year, averaged 14.3 points on 48% shooting from the field, 35% shooting from three, 5.2 rebounds, 1.7 assists, and 1.0 steals in 22.5 minutes per game. Didn't start any games this year for the G League Ignite. And obviously the Ignite, that project just didn't work out, I think, the way that they were hoping it would. So it's a little bit difficult to figure out what exactly you're supposed to take from the guys who played for the Ignite this year. But I think that's why having those guys in for workouts makes a whole lot of sense. ESPN's mock draft has Tyler Smith going to the Knicks with the 24th overall pick, and they write that this is an opportunity to show up their depth as they try to sustain the season's success into the future. This is him going to the Knicks, as I mentioned, so he's talking about the Knicks here, I guess, which, by the way, too, I guess later in the first round, it's okay. Talking about team-specific things in the first round, even in a draft that is not especially well thought of, I don't know if that's really a direction you want to go just yet. And I guess you're picking at 20-something. At that point in time, you probably can put some value in what you need over maybe what the best player available is. But if other teams are going to do that, go right ahead, I guess. Moving on, it says Smith made positive strides for the G League Ignite and has some blueprint to develop into an effective floor spacing forward, as well as enough size to hold his own on defense. And that was one of the things that actually Tyler Smith talked about, wanting to talk about his defensive versatility. We're going to hear from him in a second talking about that, but not something that necessarily guys come in talking about. I think obviously you're in these workouts, You don't want to be like, yeah, I'm a score guy. I want to score. Scoring's great. That's what I love to do. But I mean, he seemed really sincere in his desire to show teams that he could be a versatile defensive player. I think as someone who some projections have as a small forward, power forward center, he looks to me like a center. At least when you see his body style, that looks like an NBA center to me. But hey, if you can shoot well from three, you can probably play some four as well. Finishing off here, ESPN writes that could be appealing to the Knicks, a team with a roster currently lacking in stretch bigs. So a stretch big, the definition, or at least how they're categorizing Tyler Smith. Kevin O'Connor, who has Smith as 27th in his most recent mock draft, writes that Smith is raw and probably wouldn't play very much as a rookie, just like another G Leaguer, Leonard Miller, last year. But like Miller, Smith has size and versatility that would be worth developing behind the scenes. Portland Trailblazers are definitely a team that's going to be developing talent this season, a team that's still working towards building their roster for good things to come in future seasons. So that might not be a bad place for Tyler Smith to end up, or at least the expectation wouldn't necessarily be that he would have to come in and compete for minutes right away or produce right away. He might actually get minutes right away because the Blazers probably have those minutes for guys who are developing. So maybe not a bad situation for him, but we'll see. So let's go ahead and hear from Tyler Smith after his workout in Portland on Tuesday at the practice facility in Tualatin.
Have you getting advice on this whole process of going through these draft workouts?
I mean, just control what you can control. Just play hard. That's all you can really do at the end of the day, and just let your work show.
What do you know about this organization?
I know it's a really good organization. You know, a lot of guys got hurt last year, so I feel like they would have been way better. But I mean, this year, everybody coming back, so I feel like I'm gonna be even stronger. So,
how do you feel like your experience in the G League helped you prepare for this?
I feel like it helped me in a lot of ways, just knowing the different spots, NBA lingo, things like that, and playing against rookies that came up and down, getting knowledge from them on how the things goes like during the season. So I feel like I have an advantage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of relationship with, I know Scoot wasn't there when you were there, but was he, I know he was still in touch with like people in the program. Did you connect with him at all?
Yeah, he'll check in with us every now and then, you know, group time, FaceTimes, things like that, just telling us how the league is. Even his struggles during the season, how we can prepare and stuff like that. So, yeah.
When you talk about kind of showing defensive versatility, you know, obviously you can show off offense. You know, you make shots after offense. Like, how do you go about showing defensive versatility in a workout like this? I
mean, just showing you could guard and sit in multiple positions. Especially at my size, that's a skill. Guys like Jay McDaniels, Nas Reed, they're making it look cool again. I mean,
sure.
So I mean, yeah, just showing that stuff, yeah.
Tyler, how do you get to show more in these workouts than perhaps you got to show with the Ignite?
I mean, with a team, you play more of a role. Workouts, you get to show what you've been working on. So I feel like that's one of the areas that, yeah.
What in specific do you think you can highlight a little bit more in workouts, or what have teams kind of asked to see from you so far?
Defensive coverages, things like just switching, showing I can move my feet, and just making shots off the dribble. That's it for real.
How many workouts have you had so far, and do you know where you're going next?
This is my second workout, and I'm going to New Orleans next.
Do you know how many you have scheduled out? Or?
No, not yet.
Not yet?
Nope. Sure.
Working on offensively, anything specific?
No, not really. Just really my game. Just catch and shoots, dribble pull-ups, and scoring off the dribble. That's it. So, yeah.
So there you go. Tyler Smith of the G League Ignite discussing his workout with the Portland Trail Blazers. Be interested to see if he's a guy who's able to move up, as I believe the next guy, Kel'el Ware, has already done. You know, I've already seen him on various mock drafts going anywhere from late in the lottery to somewhere in the 20s. A guy who started his career at Oregon, didn't go the way that he or anyone there would like. Questions about his motor, which when you talk about big men and quote-unquote motor, it's always something that gets people a little nervous, because I think people have become accustomed to seeing kind of the quote-unquote lazy big man. I'm not saying this is the case at all, but there's just an idea about what that guy looks like. Like, no one ever talks about like point guards with motors or shooting guards with motors. You know, it's always about big men. And so to have that question about him at Oregon, he goes to Indiana, has a heck of a season at Indiana, averages 15.9 points on 59% shooting from the field, 43% shooting from three, not on a lot of attempts, but still 43% shooting from three, about 1.3 attempts per game, 9.9 rebounds, 1.9 blocks, and 1.5 assists in 32.1 minutes per game. Played and started in all three of his appearances with the Hoosiers after starting just 4 of his 35 games with the Ducks. 7 foot, a full 7 foot, 20 years old, out of Little Rock, Arkansas. ESPN's mock draft has Ware going right after Smith with the 28th pick, also to the Knicks, which, again, I don't know why you're talking about fit if you're going to have them drafting 2 big men back-to-back, but whatever. Folks at ESPN write, Ware has tremendous physical ability with his size, length, and mobility, as well as his ability to stretch the floor and protect the rim in small doses. If he can buy into playing with the type of toughness and intensity that Tom Thibodeau requires, again, they haven't gone to the Knicks here, he could be a steal in this part of the draft. I think he's able to do those things. He'd probably be a steal for any team, regardless of whether or not Tom Thibodeau is coaching that team. Kevin O'Connor at The Ringer, who actually has Ware at 17 going to the Pelicans, writes that his combination of skills gives him great pick-and-roll potential. His high school team ran plays off the opening tip in which the player would screen for him and he'd sprint towards the basket to catch a lob. While one of his weaknesses is effort and focus have wavered back since high school, he'll disappear for an entire half. His desire to box out and play with physicality is a notable concern, and he's been bullied by players of comparable size to him, which is, I think, the only reason why he's even going in mock drafts as high as he's listed. I'm imagining he's a guy during workouts. I could very easily see him moving up the boards just because he's got the size, he's able to shoot. And again, a full, legit 7-footer. Those kind of guys, if they get that late in the draft, I'd be a little bit surprised. In this draft, at least, I'd be a little bit surprised. Guys in this draft, there's probably going to be something that you're going to have to deal with or settle for players in this draft. No one particularly late first round, even late lottery. Every guy's going to have something that you're going to wish he was better at that he's not. I don't think you can get picky in this draft. I think you just have to basically find guys who have skills you like and then accept the fact that there's maybe going to be some parts of their game that you don't like or that maybe you might have to work on them with. And that's kind of the point of an organization, is to take in a player. They don't have to be fully formed, and then help that player become a better player, not only for the players themselves, but obviously for the team as well. So let's go ahead and hear what Ware had to say about his workout at the practice facility on Tuesday in Tualatin.
How would you say today went for you?
I would say it went good. It went great. Yeah.
What are some things you kind of wanted to focus on to showcase?
Just showing that I have a shot and being able to, put the ball on the floor and defend, the guards that are here. So
you said show off your shot. Is that something that you're constantly working on? Is it something that's come somewhat naturally to you?
Always. I'm always working on it to get better at it. So.
What kind of shots do you like to take?
Catch and shoot threes, even off the dribble threes, just to show that I'm a, all-around player and not just under the basket big. So.
You mentioned defense. What do you pride yourself on defensively?
Just been able to switch 1 through 5 or, whatever, the coaches need me to. So.
What kind of feedback have you been getting from teams during the whole process?
I've been getting, good feedback, just, saying they've been talking to my agents and some of my agents just been getting back to me. So.
Are there any skills or traits you're trying to show maybe to answer things? Because a lot of times guys will come into a draft process and there'll be questions about their game or this or that, and they'll come to workouts wanting to kind of answer some of those questions. So for you, are there any questions you're trying to answer in these workouts?
I don't know about any questions. Well, y'all know, of course, the motor thing out there, but
well, okay.
So I feel like that, just pushing myself through the workouts and showing that I'm in shape and I can keep going. So.
Kel'el, on that point, you had a productive season in Indiana, 16-10-2, your percentages mark out. How do you go, hey, look, I performed in Indiana. This should be more about this than maybe some of the motor questions that are working. How do you try to get through that stuff in all of these scrimmages and all these drills?
Like I just play, just play the game that I've always been playing and let the media be the media. So.
It's in my eyesight, so humble beast. Where's that come from?
That's just me. I'm not, the cocky type. I'm, the calm dude. I don't really show emotions on the court. So it's just the humble, but I can show you the beast on the court. So, yeah.
How important was that move to Indiana, after kind of a down year?
I feel like that was an important move. I feel like that was a great fit for me, especially, but like I said, with Trace leaving and then with Woody, his game is an inside to out game. And so I feel like that fit me in that program. So
it seems like, particularly for centers now, just for big men in general, you have to have a lot of game now. They can't just do like 1 or 2 things. How do you feel like your game is in total? So like offensive, defensively, inside, outside?
I feel like I could, like I said earlier, I'm not just back to the basket big. If a coach need me to switch 1 through 5, I can switch 1 through 5. If he need me, pick and pop or be that, that pick and roll, got to be that lob threat, then I can do that.
Well, one of the things that's this team really needs is help on screens, and the effectiveness not only is that vertical target, but the guy who's willing to set 40 screens a night. You were a guy in college who you're willing to set screens, but you're also a big-time slip guy. How do you kind of show in practice that, or in these drills, that you're willing to be that guy that kind of sacrifices on that side?
Just by doing it. So I would say that.
When you work out for a team, do you check the depth chart and consider where you might fit in? This team obviously has a lot invested in the starting center, so if you came in, you'd be fighting for backup minutes. Do you consider that at all?
I feel like anywhere I go, I would be fine for minutes. I mean, it's a job at the end of the day, so.
So there you go, Kel'el Ware after his workout with the Portland Trail Blazers. I imagine there'll probably be at least one more workout this week, potentially more. And for the next couple weeks, at least till we get to the end of June when the draft is actually held, I guess there's probably going to be a couple workouts every week, if not maybe more than that. Trailblazers with the 7th, 14th, 34th, and 40th pick. Obviously, a lot of work to do in terms of evaluating some of these players, figuring out which players might work for them, figuring out which players other teams might be interested in. With 4 picks, you already had quite a few young players on the team last year anyways. You kind of assume they're probably not going to have 4 rookies on the team this year. Though who's to say now you have a G League team, so we'll see how that shakes out, potentially the opportunity for trades at the draft. So still plenty of work done almost exactly a month out from the 2024 NBA draft. After 2 workouts, I don't know I could really make any definitive statements about the type of player or the type of positions that the Blazers are looking at right now. 2 or 3 more workouts, though, we might have a pretty good sense of the direction the team is looking to go in this draft. Seems like they brought in quite a few big men already in this draft. Again, not sure there's anything to make out of that just yet. But if they have another couple workouts with a couple big men, especially big men who are expected to get drafted, then maybe you can start extrapolating out some ideas. Well, before we wrap up this edition of the Briefcase, might as well touch real quickly upon the NBA playoffs. Boston Celtics sweeping the Indiana Pacers in 4 games to move on to the Boston Celtics sweeping the Pacers in 4 games. As I told you, they probably would move on to the finals. Boston Celtics, again, through no fault of their own, getting about the easiest possible path to the finals that I can ever recall. The Celtics were the better team anyways. As soon as Tyrese Halliburton went down, that was the end of that series. Pacers caught some good luck, very reminiscent of the Trailblazers Western Conference run from, I believe, 2019. Obviously, they got there. You can only play the teams that are in front of you. You get lucky with a few injuries on your opponents. You make it to the conference finals, and then you get swept by the much better team. Even though it looks like you got a chance to win either one of those games, you end up winning none of them. You end up getting swept. The other team moves on to the finals. You go home. And then on the other side of the table, the Dallas Mavericks taking the legs out of the Minnesota Timberwolves, up 3-0. That game is actually going on right now. By the time you listen to this, Game 4 of Timberwolves-Mavs will probably be over. At that point in time, it's potential that the Mavs have already moved on to face the Boston Celtics. It's always possible that the Timberwolves end up winning that game, but no team has ever come back from 3-0, and this Timberwolves team is definitely not going to be the team to do it against this Mavericks team. So I feel very comfortable in saying that this series is over, even if it's technically still going. So you will see the Dallas Mavericks versus the Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals. That final starting in Boston. Boston, the number 1 overall seed. I think it's going to be in like 8 or 9 days, which is a real bummer. The fact that we've had a pretty good playoffs in the NBA this year, and now we're going to have to wait for over a week because the conference finals both turned into duds. Even though the Boston Celtics are the team with the better record and have skated through much of the season, I'm going with the Dallas Mavericks. I just don't trust the Boston Celtics. I trust Kyrie. I trust Luka. Actually, and in reverse order, I trust Luka more than I trust Kyrie. They've got the right mix of role players to go out and stop the Boston Celtics. Celtics, again, a very talented team, just not a very cohesive team to me. They're very good. I'm not saying they're not a good team. I don't trust them. They're the kind of team that until they show they can do it, and at this point they have to win a championship, I guess, to show me, I'm just not going to buy it. So I'm picking the Dallas Mavericks in 6 games. And that's going to do it for this edition of The Briefcase. Thanks so much for joining me. As always, be back later on this week with a new edition. Also a new edition of the Blazers Balcony with Brooke Olzendang coming out this week as well. Potentially more workouts this week. We're going to talk more about Bill Walton. Probably talk a little about the NBA Finals if the series versus the Timberwolves and the Mavericks has gone final, and probably a few other things as well. I didn't mention it either. I don't know any details yet. I don't know what's going to happen with the Bill Walton memorial services. It's still pretty early, I think, to have had that discussion just yet. But when that information does come across, I will make sure to let you know. But as I mentioned, I'm going to keep celebrating Bill on the Briefcase here throughout the offseason because the man deserves it. Once again, thank you as always. I am Casey Holdahl. You have been listening to The Briefcase. Go Blazers.